Okay, we're live.
Hello, welcome to Pomo Arts. Thank you for being here this evening. Tonight we're streaming live from the gallery for an artist talk and tour with Robert Ascroft for his exhibition Sides. I'm Janice Cotter, gallery manager. At Pomo Arts, we've started an internal organization-wide mandatory process of equity, diversity, and inclusion training, along with organizational decolonization practices training in order to help us work towards developing a meaningful territorial acknowledgement. We recognize this is just the first step and that we have a long way to go, including the building of respectful relationships with local Coast Salish nations in our community. As we start this evening, I'd like to express gratitude to the Pomo Arts Board of Directors, the Province of British Columbia for their support through the gaming program, the City of Port Moody, and the Government of Canada for their support through the Canada Summer Jobs Program. Thank you for joining us. This is the third in our virtual events for this series of exhibitions, and I'm glad you could be here. It's wonderful to have Robert here with us in the gallery to talk about his exhibition. Robert Ascroft's first career was as a commercial artist in Montreal, where he developed and taught an alternative art program at high school level. He moved on to non-art related careers in academia and business training, but after retiring, Robert renewed his passion for painting. He says watercolor is the perfect medium for him because he works in a representational style, capturing fine detail and texture. He enjoys painting en plein air during the summer, and he works from his studio in the winter. I'm very pleased to have Robert Ascroft here with us this evening. Come on in, Robert.
Thank you, Janice. I appreciate the introduction. For those of you who are on Facebook, thank you, welcome. And for those of you who are not used to Facebook, and I'm tiny on the screen, double left click and I'll be full screen. Not for me, it's for the painting. So thank you for watching, and I'd like to thank Janice and the Port Moody Art Gallery for hosting my show. It was a great pleasure to be here. Thank you, Star, who's the camera person tonight, and so I'm glad to be here. There's an exhibition next door in the big gallery called Healing Gardens, and I watched the presentation on their opening night. There was about 9 artists, and they went through their work and they talked about it. And what struck me is they called it Healing Garden because they'd used their art to cope with the stresses of the last couple of years through the pandemic. And it occurred to me that basically I should be part of that exhibition too, because this in fact was my healing garden. As many of you know, my wife Jeannie had Alzheimer's and was in rapid decline in the last couple of years. And I got her to bed around 10 every night, and I needed some control, I needed some stress relief, so I went back to painting again. So for a couple of hours every night for 2 years, I managed to put together a few paintings, and which ended up in an exhibition. I didn't start off with the idea of an exhibition, but it evolved as I went along. So one other thing too is that this has come full circle for me, because after I retired, I needed something to do, and my wife suggested that I get back into painting, and so I took my very first watercolor course post-retirement here at Port Moody with Tammy Pilon, and that got me started. I went to the Dogwood Senior Center and took a course with Hazel Greatness, and then after that I took a whole bunch of courses with the Canadian Federation of Artists with some really wonderful instructors. So I attribute my skill development to some excellent instructors along the way. This show, I like painting landscapes. I like painting urban landscapes because I like old buildings. I guess as I get older buildings have an appeal because they're starting to sag, and so am I. And they've got rust, and my knees are rusty, and so I have an affinity for old buildings. So basically, this is what I like to do right now, and this is how I started out. And because of the pandemic, I did this in the pandemic for the first year. I didn't get out very much, so basically, I dug into my repertoire of old photographs I'd taken previously. So 6 out of the 10 paintings are photographs that I took before I started this series, so it's kind of an accidental series. So I'm going to go through each one and talk about it. I'm going to, like a sausage manufacturer, I'm going to give you some idea what's behind all this and some of the things to look for. This is the largest series of paintings that I've done in terms of size. They're full sheets, they're 28 by 17. They're done on heavy-duty watercolor paper, 300 pounds, and they're done with non-staining colors, because I do make mistakes. I know it's unbelievable, but yeah, I make mistakes. So let's start with this painting here. This reference photograph for this was 2016, and it's a building on Quebec Street in New Westminster, just near Royal Avenue and Stewartson Way in that area. So I just love the way it was. It was set up as a break area, I'm sure, and heaven knows what's in the drums, but basically I decided that I'd like to do this. This also changed the name of the series, because originally I was going to call it Walls, until I just did this one and I realized it's not enough wall to call it a wall, so I called it Sides. So that's how it got its name. I don't paint directly from the photos. I use them as references, and in this case I moved a bunch of things around just to get a better composition. I try in my compositions to get a circular activity, so I'm trying to move you around. So I kind of manipulate the viewer if I can. So that's I look for. I don't always successful because some of the material is not amenable to circularity, but anyway. So the next one over here is in Ladner Road. And that's a photo of that was taken in 2009. It still looks pretty similar. I was out there a couple of years ago, and it still looks pretty much the same. More graffiti on it. I didn't include the graffiti, but this is the last one I did in this series, and I think I reached the epitome of my painting with this one. But again, it's trying to get a circularity. If you move around here, I'm trying to get you to move around. So hopefully that you can see that. But I love peeling paint. I love painting rust, and peeling paint are two of the things that I really like. So this one has got a bit of everything in there. This next one on our is from Petty Harbor, Newfoundland. My wife and I went there on a trip in 2017, and I took, this basically is a composite of two pictures. The one with the fishnet is one from one picture, and the wharf is from another, because I didn't like the wharf that came with the fishnet. So I actually did this one twice. I told you I used non-staining colors and heavy paper because I can scrub off my mistakes and start again. So by the time I got down to here, I finally figured out how to do the net. So then I had to wipe it all out and start over again. So nothing goes easy. Once somebody said to me, it must be relaxing to paint. And just about every artist I know will tell you that it's not a relaxing activity. It's full of tension. There's all kinds of decisions to make. You can make mistakes, which I freely admit. But to persist till the end. I have 3 stages in my paintings. When I first start out, I think this is the best painting I've ever done. It will turn out to be the best thing I've ever done. Halfway through, I start to look at it and say, I'm making so many mistakes. This is turning into a bunch of garbage, but I'll still see if I can work to the end. And in the end, I finish it and I say, well, this is the best I can do for now, but the next painting is going to be the best one I ever did. So it's a process. I just love the way the fishnets are strung. They're such an interesting composition in itself. I get the rock effect here by taking a toothbrush, loading it with paint, and just squirting it on, so running the fingers over the bristles. That's how you get the petal effect. Over here, this is a building in Vancouver. It originally started out as the Wilkinson Steel Building in 1950. In 1970, 1980, it became the Vancouver Mill and Machinery, and they ceased business after a while and it became a storage area. The City of Vancouver has designated us a heritage site because it's near the expo site along the Olympic Village area. It's one of the few buildings remaining from that era. Most of it's been converted into multiple storied condos and businesses. So this one is being preserved. It's also rented out from time to time to the film industry, and the movie Blade 2 was shot, parts of it were shot in there, inside that building on the sets. And if you look in here, it's not that well finished because I wanted to rust the effect, so it's not sharp, and I'm trying to get a balance between sharpness and fuzziness in the painting, so they don't look too artificial. So sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I wish I have done better, but this one I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. Usually I don't include the graffiti, but in this case I thought it added a little touch to it. I don't want to reward people out there who vandalize things with their graffiti. Okay, this next one was actually revealed in 2013 when the Cop Shoe Store on Columbia Street in New Westminster burned down. And you can tell that after they removed the rubble that exposed this wall, there's actually more further on down too. But you can tell that this building was built after the Cop Shoe Store building, which was 1912, I believe. It burned in 2013. You can see here is the roof line for the building that was adjacent to it. And you can see that below here they kind of just, the masons just kind of stuck anything in place just to fill it up because they figured nobody's ever going to see it. Boy, they have a surprise for them now. So you can see anything above this roof line is pretty well developed, and they use much better quality materials. This one was a labor of love for sure. It took 155 hours, and I started from the top till I knew what I was doing because I didn't want to tackle this area down here because I wasn't sure how to do it. Do I put the bricks in first and then the mortar, or the mortar first and then the bricks? Eventually I compromised and masked off some of the brick area so that I had some white space with the gray, and then I could add the color to it much easier. In this case, this is one of the few. Usually I start from top down as a process, but in this case I worked on sections. So I would do this section to see how it worked out. I did a little bit of here to see how it worked out, and I did stuff up here, and then I tried down here. So it was a very non-linear process in this painting. Like I say, it took a long time, but I'm quite happy the way it turned out. For the most part, most of that's freehand. I do, if I have to do long straight lines, I'll use a ruler and a paintbrush. But for the most part, I try and do it freehand, so it looks like a painting and not like a simulated photograph. This next one here was 2009, I think. I got a list of when I did this one. Sorry, yeah, 2009. This is in West United Boulevard in Coquitlam. And again, I love rust and I love old paint. So this one had a lot of rust on it, and I really liked it. I also like the shadow. I think the shadow gives it a really feeling of three-dimensionality. So I was quite, I've been looking at that for years, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. And then finally I said, now's the time to try it. I did find though that when I had it like this without the top, it wasn't that interesting. So I decided, alongside the building on the left-hand side, away from the pipes, was Martha Stewart's signature collection. And I thought I would take something from that and put it in here to balance off the two elements. And it turns out it looks like nature, but it's actually signature. But if you think it looks like nature, feel free to think it's nature. I basically use 3 brushes for my paintings. I use a brush that's about 2 inches for the washes, so the background will be washed on. And then for larger areas, I use a number 6 or 7 brush, which is about that thick. And then for all the details, I use a number 2, which is about a 16-inch thick. And I go through one number 2 brush a painting. So by the time I finish the painting, the hairs are falling off. So, but they're only $8 each, so it's fine. It's affordable, as they say. I take between 20 and 30 hours to draw out a painting first. So I carefully draw and redraw. So there's a lot of erasing, but until I get what I want. So it's a process that sometimes works. There's one back here that didn't work, so I had to redraw it. So. But once I've drawn it, once I figured out the color scheme, because the color scheme I use doesn't always match the photo. I want to create an effect. I like to have warm colors in my paintings. I don't like cold. I mean, I love blue, but I like a warmer painting, so I try and find colors that are warm and not too frigid, as they say. This one here When I went to art school in the 60s, there was only abstraction and conceptual art. Neither one appealed to me. So my major was photography. And I stuck with photography for most of my life. So this was actually something I ran into. This is the Orpheum Theatre fire escape in Vancouver in 1981 or 82. And I took it as a photograph and kept it as a photograph. And that sat in my filing cabinet for about 38 years. This was the first one I actually did in the series. And I took it out and I said to myself that if I haven't got the skill now to do it, I'm never going to do it. So the challenge for me was to start off this series with this painting, which took about 80 hours, I guess, so a little bit longer. Not as much as those tiles, but it took quite a bit longer. So I would draw every brick in. All the bricks are drawn in, all the lines are drawn in first, and then it's kind of like paint by numbers after that, for the most part. I like it. People who know me like control, but I like to draw the line. I like to paint within the lines, but I also like to draw the lines, so I control the process that way. I like dramatic light and shadow. That always appeals to me. Kind of a black and white person, so this drama, the tension between the color and the light and the dark always interests me. Again, I move elements around. Like I didn't like where this was, so I moved it out here. So you manipulate the environment, because whatever you find doesn't actually fit. So I have no compulsion about changing things. This one was I think it was 2019 I took this picture. This is in New Westminster. Again, it's got a little bit of rust, but a lot of peeling paint. It originally was the BCSPCA thrift store, which eventually moved. But and there were a bunch of signs on there, but I wanted to simplify it as much as possible. I have a great admiration for a Nova Scotia artist called Christopher Pratt, and he does buildings similar. He inspires me by the way he handles building, but he even makes them more stark than this. So I'm still at the stage where I want the detail, but I certainly admire the way he approaches his work, and that it's influenced me too. I debated whether to put the blue color in, because obviously there was graffiti at one point and they painted it over, but it was such a long time ago that the paint now that they use to cover it is fading. So it adds color. If I didn't have that color in, it wouldn't be as interesting. So I kept that in, and I think it works. Also, I elongated the window. The window was only this small, but it didn't fit my purposes, so again, I manipulated it and expanded it. So I just don't copy photographs. I take a look at the elements and then I move them around to the way I feel it should look. So basically, I'm an illusionist and I manipulate the viewer. So that's what makes me an artist. Okay. This is an interesting one. This is on 6th Street and 6th Avenue in New Westminster, and 11 and a half months of the year. This is a flat, nondescript vinyl siding, bland building. And at 3:38 on August 4th, the light is coming straight down 5th Avenue, and there's enough of the vinyl siding sticking out that gives some kind of ridges, and the light at that point hit the ridges, and I went past it. I passed this place for 14 years. I hit it at the right time with that one, stopped the car, parked illegally, took the picture, and went on. But sometimes the universe, I guess this is our equivalent to Stonehenge. Twice a year you get light coming through a particular spot. Well, I guess this is the newest version of Stonehenge, where the light hits that for a few hours or a few minutes for a few days, and makes it an interesting subject to look at. I love the play between the horizontals and the verticals too. I think it just, to me, it just was so balanced and yet so interesting. This one was again from 2016, and it's probably built around the same late 40s, early 50s in Westminster, at the same time as the one on First Avenue in Vancouver. And I couldn't find any information on the Westminster Boiler and Tank Company, and nor any information on the building itself, but it still remains. It's rusting quite attractively. And this time I included the graffiti because I like the patterns somebody had done in covering up the paint. And I guess somebody went and overlaid it with more graffiti, but it's really interesting. So again, you get the texture by sprinkling on paint using a toothbrush. The rest of it is just drawing it by hand for most parts. And to get the very straight lines, I put a ruler on its edge and run the paintbrush across it. And that gives me my straight lines, because there's nothing worse than trying to do this by hand and the lines aren't straight, it doesn't look right. So, whatever I can. It's freehand, but sometimes I want the effect that I want it to be actually vertical. It's now being used as a car wash, or a car detailing company, so the building's still in use, it's still getting some use, so it's nice to see these old buildings still being used. Like I say, I have an affinity for old buildings, and as long as they're useful, and that's always a good thing. Well, that's pretty much the tour. I hope you find it interesting. I had fun doing them. Well, I enjoyed doing them. Sometimes it was a challenge, but that's the reason I paint, is that there's no point in doing it if it's not a challenge. If it's something I could knock off without an effort, then you have to wonder why I would do it. So, there. And Janice is back.
I'm coming to ask questions.
Okay.
No, you go. Okay.
Just so you can hear
Oh,
me.
you want to be able to hear.
Just so you can hear you.
Sorry. Michael Nagassi has asked, how do you decide what to paint?
Oh, I guess I paint what I like, and it turned out that because I was painting similar subject, then after I got 4 or 5 of them, my friends started saying, you should have a show. So then I had to look for more material. So that's basically it. I paint what I like. I don't paint. I guess I don't paint to satisfy anybody else. If people like my work, I appreciate that, but basically I do what satisfies and pleases me, and then after that, if somebody likes it, that's even more satisfying and pleasing.
Okay. Devin has asked, what makes a painting? So I'm just sort of reading the questions that are here, and I should have brought my glasses. What makes a paint? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
What makes a painting interesting in your eyes?
Oh.
I guess I should read that one.
Okay, that makes sense.
I was in a hurry when I came out of the office.
Yeah. I like texture and I like design. I like structure. I like things that have got some depth to them. So basically, when I do something, I look for those qualities in a painting, in a picture, in a reference, and I try and then replicate the effect that I'm looking for when I paint. So again, it's not always identical with the photo reference is. And then basically, once I get the drawing done and I figure out the color scheme, then I start painting. I had one instructor who used to tell me that when you start your painting, let your painting tell you what it needs. So once I get going, then I basically don't look at my reference a lot, then I just paint. Let the painting tell me what it needs. Like I said, I paint what interests me. And if that interests somebody else, then I'm pleased.
Oh, here's an interesting question. Lucia has asked, have you ever thought about giving up when you are not satisfied with the painting and redraw many times?
I have walked away from a painting for a while because I can't figure out how I'm going to finish it. If I walk away, what I also do is I put it somewhere where I have to pass by it all the time, and then usually it will tell me what it needs. And I will have that aha moment, and I will go back to finishing it. But there have been occasions where I didn't have that aha moment and decided not to continue it. So yeah, not very often, but sometimes I have to admit defeat, that I tackled the wrong subject and I used the wrong technique on it. So you win most, you lose some.
Eamon asks, when did you first get into painting?
I had this fabulous grade 9 teacher who took me to a night painting course, and she got me hooked. So I started in grade 9, and I painted. I drew and painted all through high school. My future wife, who I met in high school, Jeannie, encouraged me, and she went to nursing school for 3 years, and I was in the residence, so I'd send her pictures all the time, and she'd keep them. She kept everything. So yeah, so basically when time to graduate from high school, I didn't know what to do, but I knew I didn't want to go work at the local factory, so I became an apprentice artist at $25 a week, delivering packages and taking dead rats out of the storeroom. So after that, my wife convinced me to go to university to do fine arts because she thought I had it in me, and so I had her go with me. So after we got married, we went at night, did our night, pretty much most of our degree work at night. So it's been a theme all the way through. Because I was a commercial artist, I've had used the techniques and that ability all through my life. So for the organization I've done ads and posters and all that. So I've kept going all through my life. It's a theme all through my life.
Elliot asks, is there a meaning behind your paintings, or do you just paint them because you think, they look interesting?
I paint them because they look interesting, because they appeal to me.
Okay.
I have no deep philosophical approach to my painting.
Okay. Have you found any organic sort of process that allows you to draw the viewer's eye where you prefer without being, this is longer than I can see, without being overly bossy about it? That was the question.
No, not sure how to answer that. Basically, it comes down to if I like the composition, if I like it, then I'll do it. If there's no deep meaning, I just. And as I said at the beginning, the paintings, I started these paintings as a way of trying to put some control back into my life, because I certainly couldn't affect my wife's outcome. So this gave me the illusion I was controlling something in my life.
Okay, we've had a couple of people ask about how long it takes to make one piece of artwork. Now, you referred to that in your talk, but some people may have missed that.
Well, the longest one was the tile one, that was 155 hours, and the shortest one was the gray one here with the shadows. So that was about 47. So roughly between 50 and 60 hours.
Okay.
And some of my friends know me that I'm not the most patient person in the world, so they wonder how I can do this. But once you start painting and get into a zone, and you keep on going until you run out of steam.
So a question that I have that ties in with one that one of your listeners has asked is when we in production here, you had mentioned that you were going to move on for a while to oils.
Yes.
And my question was, are you working on a series? And the question here is, where did it go? Sorry, I've
What
lost
is the
it.
next challenge?
Oh, that might have been it. There might have been a couple of things. Okay, I'm missing that one, or it's higher than I can see. So, yes. Oh, sorry. What is the next challenge you would accept in painting?
Okay. Last year, after my wife died, I have two painting friends that I reconnected with, Sally Turton and Sue Cowan. They got me out painting, landscape painting, and we painted over the summer in the Coquitlam River Park. And we did sketches. I hadn't painted in oils for a bunch of years, so I had to learn how to paint in oils again. And over the winter, we've done a series. We've taken our sketches and turned them into larger paintings. So that's my next, and I'm trying to paint looser. What you see now in these paintings is probably the last of my high definition period. And I'm going to I've moved into my oil paints with much looser technique, but still representational. I'll never be an abstract artist, I don't think. Of course, in 40 years, who knows, I may change. But I don't foresee myself. So I'm always going to be a representational artist, but I also want to, how do you put it, be more painterly in how I approach things. So less detail, but still recognizable.
Okay. Now, I've heard you talk about the fact that these buildings are disappearing, some of them.
Yes.
And was it part of your intention to document any of them?
I did have an exhibition in 2019 in New Westminster's Queen's Park Gallery, and there were a bunch of houses in New West that I thought were being threatened with demolition or renovation beyond all means. And so I recorded it. So they became recordings of some of these buildings. So I do hope that in some little way I've preserved something for the future, so that buildings that now have gone are being renovated out of existence sort of reflect what they originally looked like. In their old age in most cases, but yeah.
So going back and looking at this series, which you originally called Walls, was there a moment, a specific building, or an intention that triggered this series of work?
The Orpheum Theater one with the shadows was the trigger. Like I say, when I needed to paint, I needed a subject, and this had sat in my filing cabinet for 38 years, and I figured, boy, if I can't do it now, I'm never going to be able to do it. So that was the trigger. That was the one, and it was challenging, I tell you, because I hadn't painted for probably 11 or 12 years. So it was a resurrection of some sort. Yeah.
So one of the things I'm finding when visitors come into the gallery, they walk in and just assume that they're photographs because they are so realistic. And then they find out they're watercolor and it's like, wow, they can't believe it. So I'm curious, because you talk about drawing the background and drawing lines. These are watercolors. You talked about the toothbrush tool technique that you're using. What other tools and techniques are you doing to get this fine representation of the background?
Very thin brush.
Yeah.
I had to get this out of my system, this much detail, because I'm a detailed kind of person. I used to run projects, so I'm a detailed person by nature. So it was a chance to, like I say, reconnect with my painting skills after a long period of dormancy, and this is where I am at that point. But the next one's going to be much better.
I really enjoyed your explanation about your process of it's the best one ever, it's the worst one ever. Right. Oh well, next one will be.
and this, I've talked to other artists. My friends are the same way. They start off the same process. You know, they're not happy with what they've done, but they're going to continue with. So I think that's just part of being an artist, is that you're always striving for perfection, and you always fall short, but you're always optimistic that next time you're going to get closer to perfection, whatever perfection is defined as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty interesting. By the way, Sue Cowan was on tonight.
Oh, okay.
She left a message. You'll have to go, or she commented. You'll have to go back through and have a look and see how many of your guests you know.
Yeah, a lot of friends. You told a lot of friends. So.
Well, that's really nice. Yeah, no, there's a lot of people on.
My friends are fantastic support. I've had all through the last few years and before that. So I'm blessed with a bunch of really, really good friends, and that's been how I've been able to make my way through this.
And so now you've moved on to this series in oils.
Yes.
And you are loosening up a bit.
Yes, I am.
Using
not
bigger
totally,
brushes?
Not totally. By using a lot of palette knives, so you can tell I'm not into detail. So, yeah, part of the thing that I expect is that if I'm really serious about art, I will evolve. Okay? If I have to keep doing the same thing over and over again because that's what people like, then I'm not an artist. I'm a craftsman. Okay? So I've got to take risks. I've got to move past where I am. I've got to be daring. So yeah, I want to develop as an artist. I want to be the best artist I could possibly be in whatever time I have left. So try not to rest on my laurels. I'm gonna push the envelope, as they say. It's a cliche, but anyway, I haven't seen an envelope yet that I haven't pushed. Anyway.
Well, I think this is a good time to be doing that, and it's always so refreshing to see artists move on to new things and push their limits, challenge themselves.
Yeah. Well, we thought it would be an interesting series with the Coquitlam River because there's 3 of us painted in the same place, and we all have 3 different styles. So if we can get a show together, then we can have the same subject but completely different approaches, which I think makes art interesting, right? Mm-hmm. It's our own vision and our interpretation, and then we have other artists who have the same vision but different interpretation.
That is a good start for a show. Did you want to, I don't see any other questions here, and I apologize if I missed any, but when you go and have a look at the Facebook page, you can, if you see something I missed, you can ask or answer it on Facebook.
I'm not a Facebook member, so I'm not sure if I get access to it.
Okay. So. Well, you can always send me the answer if you can you can see it, and then I will put the answer in for you if I missed it.
Okay. Well, again, I appreciate you hosting this show. It was such a I'm so grateful that I've been able to exhibit these paintings and let everybody else see what I've been doing. So.
They've been enjoyed. People are really enjoying it. So if you want to say anything to your visitors, your guests.
Well, thank you for watching. I hope you found it interesting. I didn't ramble too often, but I do appreciate you tuning in and sharing the work that I have. So thanks very much. And come here too. Visit the gallery. Actually, I had somebody who saw pictures that I'd sent them online and came to the gallery and said that it's much better in person. So come to the gallery. 10 until 9.
We're open 10:30 until 9 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 10 o'clock to 4:30 Saturday, Sunday.
So,
and there's still 3 more weeks.
7 days a week they're open, so come on down.
And if they call you, I'm sure you'll
That's
meet
right.
them here.
If you want a personal tour, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I hope you've enjoyed the series of artist talks for our these exhibitions, and hopefully we will be going live soon. So there may be the odd virtual artist talk, but we will hopefully do some in-person events again.
Good.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.